Across modern gardening circles, few mulching materials have been praised as much as wood chips. They've been marketed as the go-to solution for home gardeners wanting fewer weeds, better moisture retention, and insulation against the extremes of heat and cold. Many community gardens and backyard projects have leaned heavily on truckloads of chipped branches to cover bare soil, claiming a miracle fix for healthier crops. At first glance, this practice seems unbeatable. Who wouldn't want a mulch that smothers weeds, keeps the ground moist, and eventually breaks down into rich organic matter? But here's where things take a surprising turn. The Amish, who are often held up as masters of simple, productive, and sustainable farming, have largely set aside the use of wood chips in their gardens. These are people who live and breathe agriculture, whose livelihoods depend on soil health across generations. And yet, rather than covering their fields and gardens with chips like so many others do, they rely on very different methods. To understand why, and what they use instead, is to uncover a set of practices that can transform the way we think about soil care. The Amish philosophy toward farming is shaped by two guiding principles: self-sufficiency and a deep respect for natural soil processes. At its core, their approach is about working with what the land and the farm already provide, rather than hauling in materials from outside. This mindset instantly raises questions about wood chips. Unless a farmer is regularly felling trees and grinding them down, wood chips are usually a purchased or bartered material. That alone runs against the grain of Amish farming culture, where inputs are expected to cycle within the farm itself. There is also the issue of timing. Wood chips do decompose, but the process is notoriously slow. Their breakdown can lock up nitrogen in the soil, leaving plants temporarily starved of a key nutrient. For gardeners aiming for quick results in vegetable plots, that lag doesn't fit the rhythm of seasonal growing. The Amish recognize that while wood chips may eventually enrich soil, their delay in contributing usable fertility makes them less practical for food production. Equally important is the biological balance. The Amish value materials that teem with life, microbes, fungi, and readily available nutrients that plants can access in real time. Fresh manures, composted bedding, and living cover crops fuel the soil food web immediately, feeding not just plants but the network of organisms that sustain soil health. Compared to these active inputs, wood chips appear passive and sluggish, offering long-term insulation, but little in the way of immediate nutrition. So rather than spreading wood chips over their fields, the Amish double down on methods that keep soil fertility cycling vigorously without bottlenecks. One of the most powerful alternatives the Amish rely on is cover cropping. Instead of laying down a static mulch, they seed living plants that perform multiple functions at once. Cover crops suppress weeds just as effectively as wood chips by shading the soil and crowding out competitors. They also prevent erosion, lock in moisture, and most critically, pump organic matter directly into the ground. Leguminous cover crops such as clover, vetch, and field peas fix atmospheric nitrogen and enrich the soil naturally. Grasses like rye or oats build biomass quickly, which can be turned under to boost organic matter levels. Buckwheat is often used in summer gaps to smother weeds and add quick fertility before the next main crop. These plants don't just sit on the soil surface like chips would, they send roots deep into the earth, breaking up compaction, improving structure, and feeding soil microbes with root exudates. Seasonal rotation is central to this practice. After a vegetable harvest, instead of leaving bare soil, Amish farmers will seed winter rye or clover to hold the land through the cold months. If cover crops are one side of the fertility equation, animal manure is the other. Amish farms are tightly integrated systems where livestock waste is not seen as a problem to be managed but as a treasure to be cycled back into the land. Horses, cows, and poultry provide a steady stream of manure that, when composted with bedding straw, becomes a biologically active amendment richer and more immediate than slow-decaying wood chips. Composted manure carries both readily available nutrients and a dense microbial population that kicks soil life into gear. When spread over fields or worked into garden beds, it delivers a pulse of fertility that vegetables can draw on almost instantly. The Amish often combine manure with plant residues to create balanced compost piles, carefully layered and turned until the material is dark, crumbly, and alive with organisms. This compost not only feeds plants but also rebuilds soil texture, creating a loose, well-aerated environment where roots thrive. The emphasis here is on cycling resources already present on the farm. Animals are fed on farm-grown forage, Their waste returns to the soil, crops grow stronger, and the loop continues without dependence on external suppliers. The deeper lesson in Amish practices is that they don't view soil improvement as a single act, like spreading mulch, but as a full, integrated system. Cover crops, manure, and compost all work together to keep soil biology humming. Weed suppression is handled by dense living covers rather than inert layers. Fertility is generated on site instead of hauled in from elsewhere. Organic matter is built through the constant cycling of plant and animal residues, not through the slow breakdown of wood chips that may take years before their nutrients are fully available. This holistic approach also reveals why their soil tends to stay fertile generation after generation. By leaning on natural cycles, they avoid the pitfalls of one-size-fits-all solutions. For modern gardeners, the Amish way really challenges some common assumptions. Wood chips aren't wrong exactly, but they're not always the best choice if rapid fertility and biological activity are your main goals. The Amish model, honestly, suggests we look a bit closer at the living processes we can harness instead. Things like green manures, composts, and just the constant return of organic matter that's already part of your farm or garden ecosystem. For those managing small backyard plots or even larger homesteads, the takeaway is actually pretty clear. Instead of depending solely on external materials like wood chips, consider how cover crops, homemade compost, and whatever organic matter your household naturally produces can become the backbone of your soil care. Planting clover or rye after a summer harvest, composting kitchen scraps with leaves, or using poultry bedding as a soil amendment, all of these echo the practices that have kept Amish fields fertile for centuries. These methods don't just build soil, they also reduce dependence on outside inputs, cut costs, and make a garden more self-sustaining. Over time, they create a living soil system that really needs less intervention, because its fertility is constantly renewed from within. The Amish don't discard wood chips out of ignorance, but because honestly they've found faster, richer, and more sustainable ways to care for their soil. Their reliance on cover crops, manure, and compost really shows the power of working with living systems rather than just inert materials. For gardeners today, this offers both inspiration and a practical roadmap. Shift your focus from what sits on the surface to what's happening within the soil itself. If this deep dive into Amish gardening wisdom gave you some fresh ideas for your own beds and fields, don't let it end here. Share this with a fellow grower who's still piling wood chips without questioning. And hey, subscribe to Hydrohaven for more soil-smart, time-tested gardening strategies that'll keep your ground thriving year after year.